What is the saddest thing you have seen a parent do to their child? I was working Children's Protective Services. I was on call for the weekend. About 11:30 p.m., I got a call that a 14-year-old boy was beaten by his mother's live-in partner. The police took him into protective custody until I arrived at the police station. The boy's mother was at the police station, as was her partner. When I arrived at the police station, I noted he had multiple bruises in various stages of healing. I interviewed him, and he disclosed he received the injuries when he intervened to protect his dog, whom the man was punching and kicking. When he intervened, the man beat him by punching and kicking him. He told me his mom watched her partner beat him, and it wasn't until his lip was split and he was bleeding that she told him to stop. The youth disclosed his mother's live-in partner beats his dog daily, and every time he saw it, he intervened and he was beaten. He reported he had cuts and bruising from beatings he took for intervening for his dog. A medical evaluation confirmed the injuries on this youth are consistent with his report of abuse and neglect. After the interview, I transported him to a youth home. Before we left, I asked Mom to come into the room and talk to him before we left for the youth home. This woman had adult children who had been removed from her care, and parental rights were terminated. As per child protection law, I was required to petition juvenile court to remove the youth and place him in the care of the state, and to terminate her parental rights due to the current risk and prior termination of parental rights. She came into the room we were in and just stared at him. Then she looked at me and asked me what she should say to him. I told her it's up to her. Say what she needs to say to make it easier on him. After all, he was going into a youth home because her partner beat her child, and she failed to intervene on his behalf. She chose her partner over her child. She stood up and opened her arms to him. She was crying, and so was her son. She said, "Oh, I used to love you so much. I used to love you." I called the police to take the mother out of the room. The child was sobbing and begging her to forgive him and love him again. The police took her out of the room, and I transported him to the youth home. He cried and rocked in the back seat of the state car as I transported him to the youth center. I was practically choking myself to keep from crying right with him. This child was beaten for intervening for his dog, and his mother told him she used to love him. Her child was 14. She had him for 14 years and just threw him away like he was garbage. I filed a petition with the court, and the child was placed with a single dad. The dad was a teacher, and he was wonderful to this child. I remained involved pending the final ruling of the court regarding termination of parental rights. His biological father was in prison for murder. My permanent plan was immediate termination of parental rights and placement of this child for adoption. We went to trial, and the court took permanent jurisdiction of the child. The permanent plan was for the foster father to adopt him. I went out on a limb and asked the court to remove the dog from the mother and place the dog with the child in the home of the foster father. The court did not take the dog. I asked them to ask Mom if she would give the dog to her son. She refused, said she would never give up her dog. She walked away from her child without a look back, but wouldn't give up her dog who was being beaten by her partner. The child was devastated. He wanted his dog. He lost everything, and all he wanted was his dog. To date, I detest that mother. It took every ounce of self-control not to go off on this mother in court and outside of court. This story has a happy ending. That foster dad adopted him, and he adopted a puppy for him. It has been years and years since I had this case. I often wonder about children that I have had to remove from the care of their parents. And this child touched my heart. I pray my kids are happy and that their lives will be blessed. I admit I said an extra prayer for this youth. He is now a grown man. He may even be a dad himself now. I have chills as I remember this boy. He touched me in so many ways. And his adoption is proof maybe I did more good than harm when I was required to intervene on behalf of abused and neglected children. I can just see him in my mind's eye, playing with his own children as they play at the dog park.